The Silent Watchers. Observer Kethlon adjusted his crystalline appendages around the monitoring console, his translucent form flickering with nervous energy. For 47 cycles, he had watched the small blue planet in the outer rim of what its inhabitants called the Sol system. Earth, they named it. A backwater world filled with primitive bipedal mammals who had barely managed to leave their planetary cradle. The Galactic Observation Network had classified Earth as Level 2 developing, meaning the species showed promise but remained centuries away from true spacefaring capability. The humans had managed a few clumsy trips to their moon and had built some basic orbital stations, but nothing that would concern the established powers of the galaxy. At least that was what the reports had always said. Kethlon's sensors detected another anomaly in Earth's orbital space. For the past several months, these irregularities had been increasing. Objects that appeared to be communication satellites or space debris would occasionally emit energy signatures that didn't match their supposed function. The readings lasted only microseconds before returning to normal, but they were there. Status report. Observer, came the commanding voice of High Archon Veltar. The massive reptilian leader materialized as a hologram beside Kethlon's station, his golden scales gleaming under the artificial lights of the monitoring station. Continuing standard surveillance of the Sol system, High Archon. Kethlon replied, his harmonic voice resonating through his crystal structure. The humans maintained their expected development patterns. Primitive rocket technology, basic orbital construction, limited communications array. Veltar's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air as he always did when considering information. Yet you flagged this system for enhanced monitoring. Why? Kethlon hesitated. In truth, he wasn't entirely sure. Something about the human development patterns felt wrong, though he couldn't identify exactly what. Minor inconsistencies in their technological progression. High Archon. Nothing alarming, but worth observing. Show me. The holographic display activated, showing Earth in beautiful detail. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents dotted with the lights of human cities. It looked peaceful, almost pastoral. Kethlon highlighted various points around the planet and in nearby space. These are their known military installations, he explained. Standard defensive positions around major population centers. Their space-based assets include approximately 200 satellites, 3 space stations, and regular shuttle traffic between Earth and Luna. Veltar studied the display with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of a dozen galactic civilizations. And the anomalies. Here, and here. Kethlon marked several points. Energy readings that spike beyond normal parameters for milliseconds, always dismissed as solar interference or equipment malfunction in their communications. Could be exactly that. Yes, High Archon, except the pattern is too regular. And these readings. Kethlon manipulated the display to show a 3-dimensional map of the entire Sol system. They're not just coming from Earth orbit. Veltar's golden eyes narrowed. Red dots appeared throughout the system, near Mars, in the asteroid belt, around Jupiter's moons, even at the very edge of the system near Pluto. Hundreds of them, all emitting the same microsecond energy signatures. How long has this been occurring? The earliest readings I can confirm date back 23 cycles. But High Archon, if I extrapolate backwards based on the pattern progression. How long, observer? Potentially since we first began monitoring this system. They may have been doing this for over a century of their years. The hologram flickered as Veltar's emotional state affected his projection systems. In the reptilian empire, such deception was considered the highest form of strategic thinking. If the humans had been concealing their true capabilities for so long, they were far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Initiate deep scan protocol, Veltar ordered. I want to know what those humans are really doing. High Archon, deep scanning a developing world is against Galactic Accord regulations. We could be charged with interference in natural development. Observer, if these readings indicate what I suspect they do, then we're not dealing with a developing world. We're dealing with a potential threat that has been hiding in plain sight for a century. The deep scan began immediately. Instead of the passive observation they had been conducting, active sensor beams reached out toward the Sol system. The results appeared on their screens within hours, and Kethlon's crystalline form turned a deep shade of purple, the color of extreme shock among his species. High Archon, you need to see this immediately. The display now showed Earth's true orbital infrastructure. What had appeared to be 200 satellites were actually over 3,000 objects. Weapons platforms disguised as communications arrays. Manufacturing stations hidden within what looked like simple space habitats. And the energy readings they had been detecting were communication bursts between a network that spanned the entire solar system. By the ancient flames, Veltar whispered, they've militarized their entire system. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. The deep scans had revealed something far more disturbing. Those energy signatures weren't just internal communications. They were scanning beams, reaching out into deep space, mapping every ship and station within 100 light-years of their position. High Archon. Kethlon's voice trembled with harmonics of fear. They've been watching us. The entire time we thought we were observing them in secret, they've been tracking our movements. As if summoned by their realization, a new signal appeared on their communications array. It was coming from Earth, transmitted on standard galactic frequencies, in perfect galactic standard language. Greetings, Galactic Observation Network Station Delta 7. This is Commander Zura Chen of the Terran Defense Coalition. We've been aware of your surveillance for quite some time, and thought it might be appropriate to introduce ourselves properly. Kethlon's form flickered through several colors of panic. They know our station designation. They know our language. How is this possible? Veltar, despite his shock, felt a growing respect for these humans. Accept the communication. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly they were looking at a human female in what was clearly a military uniform. She sat in what appeared to be a command center, with other humans working at stations behind her. But what caught Veltar's attention were the screens visible in the background, showing detailed schematics of reptilian empire ships, crystalline observation posts, and the territories of a dozen other galactic powers. Commander Chen, Veltar spoke, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to controlling star systems. I am High Archon Veltar of the Reptilian Empire. Your species was classified as pre-space flight. These capabilities you demonstrate should be impossible. Commander Chen smiled, and there was something predatory about the expression. High Archon, with respect, your classification was based on what we chose to show you. Humanity learned long ago that being underestimated is often the greatest advantage one can possess. You've been deliberately concealing your technological level. We've been preparing. Her expression grew serious. High Archon, our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking galactic politics for over 80 years. We know about the trade wars, the expansion conflicts, and the 3 different species that have gone extinct because they couldn't defend themselves when more powerful neighbors decided they wanted their resources. Kethlon interjected, his harmonics showing confusion. But surely you understand that the Galactic Accord protects developing species. Observer Kethlon. Commander Chen said, and both aliens realized with growing alarm that she knew exactly who they were. The Galactic Accord protects species that powerful governments decide are worth protecting. The Yaldari had a Galactic Accord protection too, right up until the hegemony decided their crystal formations were more valuable than their continued existence. She was right, and they all knew it. The Yaldari had been strip-mined to extinction 40 cycles ago. Their planet turned into a resource extraction site. The Galactic Accord had issued a formal condemnation and a small fine. So humanity decided to take a different approach, Commander Chen continued. Instead of relying on the protection of others, we chose to become strong enough that protection wouldn't be necessary. And how exactly do you define strong enough? Veltar asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. strong enough that any species considering whether humans might be good neighbors or good prey will choose neighbors. Captain Marcus Webb appeared beside Commander Chen on the screen. He was older, with gray hair and scars that spoke of actual combat experience. "Hi Arkin, with your permission, we'd like to demonstrate something." Before Veltar could respond, every screen in the observation station lit up with targeting solutions. Their ship, their weapons, their shields, their exact position in space. Everything was displayed with perfect accuracy. "Your station is currently targeted by 47 different weapon systems," Captain Webb explained calmly. "Some are kinetic interceptors that have been drifting in your direction for the past 6 months. Others are energy platforms that deployed from seemingly innocent asteroid mining ships. A few are even weapons built into the monitoring drones you thought were monitoring us." Kethlon's form went completely transparent with terror. "That's impossible. Our detection systems would have identified any weapon signatures." "Observer, your detection systems are designed to identify the weapon signatures of known galactic technology. They're very good at that, but they're not designed to identify weapons that don't match any existing database." Commander Chen leaned forward. "Humanity has been developing military technology in complete isolation for 8 decades. We've approached every problem from first principles, without any preconceptions about how space warfare should work. The result is weapon systems that your sensors literally cannot recognize as weapons. This is an act of war," Veltar stated, though his voice lacked conviction. "Hi Arkin, respectfully, this is a demonstration of why war would be inadvisable." Commander Chen's expression softened slightly. "We don't want to fight the galaxy. We want to join it as equals. But we've seen what happens to species that join from a position of weakness. What are you proposing?" "Formal first contact. Recognition of humanity as a spacefaring civilization with full galactic rights. And perhaps most importantly, acknowledgement that Earth system is human sovereign territory, with all the defensive rights that implies." Veltar considered this. The humans had clearly outmaneuvered the entire galactic intelligence network. They had been preparing for this moment longer than most civilizations had existed as spacefaring species, and if their defensive capabilities were as advanced as they claimed, attempting to subjugate them would be catastrophically expensive. "You mentioned defensive rights," he said carefully. "What exactly does humanity consider an acceptable response to territorial violations?" Captain Webb answered this time. "Hi Arkin, human military doctrine is based on a simple principle. We don't start fights, but we finish them. Any species that approaches our territory peacefully will be welcomed as friends. Any species that approaches with hostile intent will discover that humans have been preparing for that possibility for a very long time. And if larger powers decide humanity needs to be contained." Commander Chen's smile returned, and this time it was definitely predatory. "Hi Arkin, we've been monitoring galactic politics for 80 years. We know exactly which species consider themselves the apex predators in this galaxy. What they don't know yet is that while they were busy maintaining their dominance over known threats, a new apex predator was evolving in secret." She gestured to the screens showing their targeting solutions. "This is us being polite and announcing ourselves. If we had wanted to remain hidden, your observation station would have suffered a mysterious technical failure months ago, and you never would have detected our presence. You're threatening the entire galactic order," Veltar said, but there was admiration in his voice. "Hi Arkin, we're offering to join the galactic order as partners rather than subjects. The choice of how that offer is received is entirely up to the galaxy's existing powers." The communication ended, leaving Kethlon and Veltar staring at blank screens. Around them, the targeting solutions remained active, a constant reminder that they were completely at the mercy of these supposedly primitive humans. "Hi Arkin." Kethlon's harmonic voice was barely audible. "What do we do?" Veltar stared at the readings showing human capabilities spread throughout their solar system. He thought about the implications of a species that had managed to militarize an entire star system while appearing completely peaceful to the galaxy's most sophisticated intelligence networks. Observer, send an immediate priority transmission to all galactic powers. Alert them that humanity is not what we thought they were. What classification should I assign them? Veltar watched the targeting solutions on his screens, knowing that his ship existed only because the humans chose to allow it. Classification Level 5. Apex Predator. And Observer. Yes, High Archon. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact. If these humans are truly what they appear to be, then the galaxy just gained a new apex species, and it would be far better to have them as allies than enemies. As their ship began transmitting the warning to every major power in the galaxy, neither Veltar nor Keflon noticed the small human ship that had been shadowing them at undetectable range for the past 3 days, recording every transmission and preparing for the next phase of humanity's introduction to galactic society. The Apex Awakens. The emergency session of the Galactic Hegemony Council convened within hours of Veltar's transmission. Representatives from 12 major galactic powers materialized as holograms in the Great Crystal Chamber that floated in the void between star systems. The news of humanity's deception had sent shockwaves throughout known space. War Prime Gaktul of the Krellian warrior clans stood first, his massive armored form bristling with barely contained aggression. The solution is obvious. We crush this threat before it grows stronger. My fleets can be at their system within 10 cycles, and lose half your ships to weapons we can't even detect. High Archon Veltar's hologram flickered with agitation. War Prime, these humans have been preparing for exactly that response for nearly a century. Texmera, the insectoid hive queen, spoke through her collective consciousness, thousands of voices harmonizing into one. The humans pose a fundamental threat to established order. They have violated every protocol of natural development. This cannot be permitted. Dr. James Harrison had been listening to the galactic leaders debate humanity's fate for 3 hours from his position in the hidden observation post. The facility, buried deep within Luna's dark side, had been monitoring galactic communications since 2157. Now, in 2243, it served as humanity's primary intelligence hub for their introduction to galactic society. Admiral, they're forming a coalition, he reported to Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, who stood studying holographic displays showing fleet movements throughout the galaxy. 12 major powers, combined fleet strength of over 40,000 ships. Admiral Rodriguez, a woman who had spent 30 years preparing for this exact scenario, nodded calmly. Expected response. Dr. Harrison, initiate Operation Revelation. Admiral, once we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will know exactly what humanity has become. Doctor, the galaxy is already forming fleets to destroy us based on incomplete information. It's time they understood who they're actually dealing with. Dr. Harrison activated the quantum communication array, sending simultaneous transmissions to 17 different star systems. Within minutes, responses began arriving from locations the galactic powers had never suspected of human presence. Kepler station reports ready, came the first response. Human colony established 2201, current population 2.3 million, fleet strength 47 ships. New Geneva confirms operational status, followed another. Colony established 2194, population 5.1 million, fleet strength 83 ships. The reports continued streaming in. Wolf 359, Proxima Centauri, Tau Ceti, Gliese 667c, and 13 other systems, all containing established human colonies, all with significant military capabilities, all hidden from galactic detection for decades. Admiral Rodriguez smiled as the final reports arrived. Total human population, 47.3 million across 18 star systems. Combined fleet strength, 1,000 247 ships utilizing technologies the galaxy has never encountered. Back in the Galactic Hegemony Council chamber, War Prime Gactol was outlining his attack strategy when every screen in the facility suddenly activated. Commander Zara Chen appeared on all displays simultaneously, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from each human colony, their uniforms bearing the insignia of systems the galactic powers had never known were inhabited. Honored members of the Galactic Hegemony Council, Commander Chen began, "We understand you're discussing humanity's future. We thought you should have complete information before making any decisions." Texmera's thousands of voices spoke in unison, tinged with disbelief. "Impossible. Our surveys show those systems uninhabited." "Your Majesty," replied a human woman wearing the insignia of the Kepler Station colony, "your surveys were designed to detect standard galactic colonization patterns. Human colonies use different technologies, different energy signatures, and different construction techniques. We've been essentially invisible to your detection methods." War Prime Gactol stepped forward aggressively. "You claim to have militarized 17 star systems without anyone noticing. That level of deception is an act of war." Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the screens now, her bearing unmistakably that of someone accustomed to command. "War Prime, that level of preparation is an act of survival. We studied galactic history extensively before revealing ourselves. Species that announce their presence from positions of weakness tend to become extinct rather quickly. You think hiding makes you strong." Gactol's warrior pride was clearly offended. "Face me in honorable combat, and we'll see which species deserves to survive." "War Prime," Admiral Rodriguez said with genuine respect in her voice, "your species has an impressive military history. 17 successful conquest campaigns, dominant fleet tactics, warrior traditions spanning millennia. But you've been fighting the same enemies using the same strategies for centuries." She gestured, and the displays changed to show detailed analysis of Krellian military doctrine, ship designs, and tactical patterns. Humanity has been studying every major galactic power's military capabilities for 8 decades. We know how you fight, what technologies you use, and most importantly, we've been developing specific countermeasures for each potential threat. "Countermeasures?" High Archon Veltar interjected. "What kind of countermeasures?" Dr. Harrison stepped forward on the screen. "High Archon, human military development has been guided by a simple principle: assume every other species is a potential enemy and prepare accordingly. We've developed weapons specifically designed to counter Reptilian Empire shield technology, insectoid hive mind communication networks, Krellian heavy armor systems, and the defensive capabilities of 9 other major powers." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just been hiding. They had been preparing for war against enemies who didn't even know they existed. Texmera's voice carried a note of something approaching fear. "You're claiming you could defeat all of us." "Your Majesty," Commander Chen replied, "we're claiming we've spent 8 decades making sure we never have to find out. Human strategy has always focused on making the cost of aggression higher than the potential benefits." "Demonstrate," War Prime Gactol demanded. "If you're truly as prepared as you claim, prove it." Admiral Rodriguez nodded to someone off-screen. "Very well. Observer stations in the hegemony systems, please report what you're detecting." Across the galaxy, observation posts in every major system began registering massive energy signatures. Objects that had been drifting unnoticed through space for years suddenly activated, revealing themselves as human monitoring stations, weapon platforms, and communication relays. In the Krellian home system, War Prime Gactol's own military commanders reported 17 unidentified objects had appeared on their sensors, all showing weapon signatures unlike anything in their databases. "How long?" Gactol's voice was quiet with the realization of what this meant. "The first human monitoring stations reached your system 23 years ago," Dr. Harrison replied. "We've been watching, learning, and preparing ever since." High Archon Veltar studied the readings from his own territory. You have weapons platforms in every major system in the galaxy. Not weapons platforms, High Archon. Monitoring stations with defensive capabilities. There's an important distinction. What distinction? Admiral Rodriguez's expression grew serious. High Archon, a weapon platform is designed to attack. What we've deployed are systems designed to ensure that any species contemplating aggression against humanity understands the full cost of that decision. She activated another display, showing detailed intelligence on every major galactic power's military capabilities, trade routes, resource dependencies, and political weaknesses. We know which systems each power depends on for resources, which trade routes are critical to their economies, and which political factions within each government favor peaceful coexistence versus aggressive expansion. War Prime Gactul stared at the intelligence reports on his own people. You know more about Krellian internal politics than most Krellians do. War Prime, we know more about galactic politics than most galactic powers do. Knowledge is the most important weapon in any conflict. Texmera's collective voice resonated with grudging admiration. You have been preparing for total galactic war. Your Majesty, we have been preparing to make total galactic war unnecessary, Commander Chen corrected. There's a human saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We took that philosophy and applied it on a galactic scale. Dr. Harrison stepped forward again. Honored council members, humanity didn't reveal itself to threaten the galaxy. We revealed ourselves because we're ready to join galactic civilization as equals. But we needed to ensure that equals was how we would be treated. And if we refuse to accept you as equals? High Archon Veltar asked. Admiral Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but her voice carried absolute certainty. High Archon, then you would discover that humanity has been preparing for that possibility as well. The displays changed once more, showing fleet positions throughout human space. But these weren't the 1,247 ships they had initially reported. The true human fleet numbered over 3,000 vessels, many of them larger and more heavily armed than anything the galactic powers had ever constructed. This is your true military strength, War Prime Gactul asked. War Prime, this is the military strength we're willing to reveal at this time, Admiral Rodriguez replied. Humanity has learned that showing all your capabilities at once is rarely strategically wise. The implications hung in the air like a weapon waiting to strike. If this was what humanity was willing to reveal, what were they still hiding? What do you want from the galaxy? Texmera asked finally. Commander Chen's expression softened. Your Majesty, we want the same thing every species wants. Security, prosperity, and the freedom to develop according to our own values. We want trade relationships, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. We want to contribute to galactic civilization. And if other species see you as a threat, then they'll discover that threat assessment was accurate and respond accordingly, Admiral Rodriguez said simply. High Archon Veltar made a decision that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Reptilian Empire recognizes humanity as a legitimate spacefaring civilization with full galactic rights. One by one, the other powers agreed. Even War Prime Gactul, after studying the intelligence reports on human military capabilities, acknowledged that the Krellian warrior clans would benefit more from human alliance than human enmity. As the council session ended, Dr. Harrison turned to Admiral Rodriguez. Admiral, do you think they truly understand what just happened? Admiral Rodriguez watched the holographic displays showing human colonies throughout the galaxy, each one a testament to decades of careful planning and preparation. Doctor, I think they're beginning to understand that humanity was never the developing species they thought we were. We were always apex predators. We just chose to remain hidden until we were ready to claim our place in the galaxy. The communication channels fell silent, but across 17 star systems, human colonies continued their work. They had spent decades preparing for this moment, And now that they had revealed themselves to the galaxy, they could begin the next phase of human expansion among the stars. The galaxy had gained a new apex predator, but more importantly, it had gained a species that understood that true strength came not from domination, but from being too dangerous to be dominated by others. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of galactic civilization. In a universe full of predators, the safest place to be was at the top of the food chain.